Let's start off with something, I don't want to say negative, but in terms of an assessment of how the geopolitical conflict in the Middle East is impacting us from a demand perspective, because that is where most of our key markets are.
Demand obviously is a challenge, and of course logistics, it's not demand from consumers per se, but rather it is the logistics, the associated price increases, and that is affecting everywhere from the African continent to of course Europe and so on. But I think ultimately the key takeout is not this short-term, let's hope it's short-term, not this short-term crisis. Many years ago we would have said this is a once in 5 years kind of situation. You didn't have conflicts happening on a regular basis. We need to build our resilience, and that has several implications.
Are you talking more from a supply point of view on how we are managing the production or how we are managing demand?
Sri Lanka has a challenge in our export strategy. The situation today is very different. We have limitations on our environmental assets, on our human resources. Building Ceylon Tea, Ceylon cinnamon, Sri Lankan cashew, selling it at the top end of the market in terms of our heritage, our story, our natural biodiversity. Sri Lanka has so much going for it. But we need to connect that heritage, the cultural factors, with the social and economic priorities with our export marketing.
Branding Ceylon Tea has been a priority for decades. How have we fared so far? We spoke about all of this and more with the Chairman and CEO of Dilmah Tea, Dilhan Fernando. Stay tuned.
For 30 years, LMD has been the voice of business in Sri Lanka, capturing the pulse of the nation's corporate landscape through its iconic covers. Each cover tells a story, from the first edition in 1994 to the present day, narrating key moments, leaders and trends that have shaped Sri Lanka's business ecosystem. Over the years, LMD covers have featured thought leaders, business pioneers and game-changing innovations, reflecting the evolution of industries and the economy. As we celebrate 30 years, these covers represent more than just publications. They are a testament to LMD's legacy of excellence in business journalism and its unwavering commitment to being Sri Lanka's leading voice of business. LMD, Sri Lanka's voice of business, a legacy of 30 years.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is going to revolve around the tea industry and branding Ceylon Tea. And I'm here with the Chairman and CEO of Dilmah Tea, Dilhan Fernando. Welcome to our show.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you. And there's a lot of questions, so I'm going to try very hard to stick to a few so that I don't keep you here all day. Let's start off with something, I don't want to say negative, but in terms of an assessment of how the geopolitical conflict in the Middle East is impacting us from a demand perspective, because that is where most of our key markets are.
Demand obviously is a challenge, and of course logistics, it's not demand from consumers per se, but rather it is the logistics, the associated price increases, and that is affecting everywhere from the African continent to of course Europe and so on. And naturally, the impact on hospitality is dampening demand from the professional sector, from hospitality, from HoReCa and so on. But I think ultimately the key takeout is not this short-term, let's hope it's short-term, not this short-term crisis, but rather how we should build resilience, because we must expect that this is the new norm. We are going to have this kind of, many years ago we would have said this is a once in 5 years kind of situation. You didn't have conflicts happening on a regular basis. Right now, the statistics show we have something close to 50 conflicts happening at any one time. So I think the lesson from this situation, Ditwa preceding it, is the fact that we need to build our resilience, and that has several implications.
And when you say build our resilience, are you talking more from a supply point of view on how we are managing the production or how we are managing demand?
Sri Lanka has a challenge in our export strategy. The challenge is to move from volume to value.
Yes.
In the colonial times, we were forced to work on volume.
Volume.
But the situation today is very different. We have limitations on our environmental assets, on our human resources. And so in that context, particularly looking at the competitive environment, we shouldn't try to emulate the success of Vietnam or the success of China, because they have completely different demographics, they have completely different natural environment and so on. But rather we should understand that for Sri Lanka, with our limited landmass, with our relatively small internal market and the constraints of our natural resources, our focus must be on value creation, genuine value creation. I don't mean moving from bulk tea to private label tea, putting somebody else's brand on it. I mean building Ceylon tea, Ceylon cinnamon, Sri Lankan cashew, selling it at the top end of the market and connecting that aspiration with the value that we create for consumers in terms of our heritage, our story, our natural biodiversity. Sri Lanka has so much going for it. But we need to connect that heritage, the cultural factors, with the social and economic priorities with our export marketing.
And sadly, I mean, we have been talking about the need to brand Ceylon Tea for decades. And sadly, we're still talking about it because we don't have that buy-in of everyone, I mean, present company excluded. I mean, I don't want to ask why, but how can we come out of it?
The conversation has taken decades. And the reason for the disconnect or the lack of unity within the industry in our approach is that it's a lot easier to sell on price.
Yeah.
But when you sell on price, what a lot of people fail to understand is that ultimately somebody has to pay the cost.
Right.
That might be in terms of environment. You might be using chemicals beyond what is sustainable.
Yeah.
It might be in terms of exporting the benefits of cheap labor or exporting the benefits of the packaging industry, etc., that we have in Sri Lanka as a potentially as a competitive advantage. But what has changed now is that international regulations are now forcing environmental compliance, forcing social compliance. And so all of these aspects that we externalized in the past are no more possible. Quite soon you will have the implementation of EU packaging waste reduction. You will have the implications of the EU green claims directive, etc. And I don't believe we are prepared, but that is the first step in a much more rigorous evaluation of our environmental credentials, social credentials, and therefore the industry that has become geared to supplying more or less the same 5 countries for the last 30, 40 years, the Middle East, now needs to understand that we have to diversify. So when I talked about resilience at the beginning, that diversification includes recognition of the value of Sri Lanka, the value and the importance of protecting our soils for future generations, the value and importance of protecting biodiversity, connecting Sri Lanka's unique origin story to our Ceylon cinnamon. Look at what an asset we have in Ceylon cinnamon. Of course, tea is the same, but let me talk about a parallel industry. Ceylon cinnamon competes against cassia. So rather than trying to meet that cost challenge, we should actually celebrate the fact that we have a vastly more healthy product in terms of wellness, in terms of its impact on cancers, the wellness aspects. We have an asset that is indisputable, but the problem comes when you look at what it takes to brand. Branding needs, it's an all-consuming passion. When my father started branding Dilmah tea, he was 55 years of age.
When he started?
when most people start contemplating retirement. Of course, I mean, he'd been trying since he was 20. So since 1950, his mission was to make the world a better tea. And he understood that in order to do that, we have to be able to generate the value addition that is required for us to fund education, for us to fund regeneration of our rural economy, or for the vocational training, all of the things, the health, the nutrition, all of these aspects which you might not directly associate. It doesn't come as part of a line item in your balance sheet, but the absence of them, they do come. So when you have Cyclone Ditwa and you're not ready, you're not resilient in terms of your agricultural practices and so on, the cost appears. It appears, so you can think that you're avoiding it. And you can think that, look, this environmental thing, it's not my problem. But ultimately, we all have to bear the cost. So it's better, as Lord Nicholas Stern mentioned in 2005 in the Stern Report, it's vastly better to confront and address the challenges of the environment and inequality and all of this than to wait and face it, because by that time it happens. So Sri Lanka has the opportunity, even now, to convert all of this into our competitive advantage, but it needs a change in the mindset. And I think that is where the branding argument falls apart, and where we are so, I guess there's so much disunity. The reason is that you need to really believe. You need to go out into a market which is so cluttered. And I can tell you, people ask me, what do? You travel all over the world. It must be fantastic. No, it's not fantastic. We travel all over the world, my son and I, sometimes my colleagues. We spend time in stores watching consumers. We spend time sampling our product, listening to consumers. We spend time of course, in trade meetings and so on. But that's tough. And it needs commitment.
And you need to keep doing it, because consumers will keep changing, right?
And that's the point. The consumers keep changing. Exactly what you just said. The consumer today is typically a 30-plus young person. Now, people here talk about Ceylon Tea and, oh, people love Ceylon Tea and all. Actually, go into the stores in the US, go into the stores in Canada. We talk so much about Germany and their tea consumption. Walk into a store there. Is there Ceylon Tea? Actually not. So we've built this mirage in our minds, but the consumer has changed, and we've got a challenge. The dream or the vision and the power of Ceylon Tea is still there. It's just that our inability to build on it, to strengthen it, any brand, it needs continuous investment. Brand Ceylon Tea hasn't had continuous investment. And I think in that context, we need to understand that we need to work towards it. And it's not easy. It's a lot easier to say, okay, look, I'll make 5, 10 rupees, 100 rupees a kilo and sell it tea in bulk, or, I'll give somebody their private label and, you come, okay, you want LMDt, I'll give you LMDt. And so that's easy. The rest of it takes understanding of the regulatory environment, incorporating research and development, building your laboratory capability, because you're accountable to a consumer. So that's not easy. But the point is, there's nothing that's easy. Nothing good comes easy.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about tea.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with the chairman and CEO of Dilmah Tea, Dilhan Fernando. And do you think it's because we have a lot of fragmented small timers? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, what is making us so risk averse?
I think that as a combination of several factors. One is the policy of successive governments has been to try to help everyone. That's a good policy, because we need to be inclusive. But if you look at successful countries like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, they picked entities that have the capability and they pushed them as star performers and said, look, you lead the way.
Yeah.
And like my father, when he started in Australia, there was no Sri Lankan brand. There, of course, when he started, there were no grower-owned brands at all.
Right.
But he got into Australia and he opened the way for a lot of Sri Lankan growers, producers, packers, etc. But unfortunately, what happened was when they entered the market, when Dilmah was positioned at a certain price, their objective, in Vietnam, it happened, in Australia, in Poland, they went straight for 50% below us. So they focused on price. Now, price is the refuge of the least imaginative.
Yes.
Because ultimately what we say is, look, please use Dilmah. Use the awareness that we create on the beauty of Sri Lanka. But either be more expensive than us,
Yes.
or be a little bit cheaper. Don't go 50% below. We had a fantastic market in Vietnam. Many years ago, we had hundreds of Dilmah tea cafes. Unfortunately, a company that today doesn't exist, they went bankrupt as a result. They came in and said, oh, our tea is all the same as Dilmah and so on, but we are available half price. And so they destroyed the value for Dilmah. They destroyed the value for themselves and ultimately went bankrupt. And eventually, what happened was that Sri Lanka lost value addition. The same thing happened a couple of years ago in Poland, where there was a policy of increasing volume from Sri Lanka. And there was a delegation of exporters who went to Poland and went to customers and said, we'll give you the same as Dilmah. Don't worry, but we'll give it under your label. It's very easy to do. You don't have to market. You don't have to spend days in the field walking in stores and market research and designs and all of this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And they did it. And unfortunately, that affected our position in those stores. So now they created a competition for Sri Lanka and eventually affected. I mean, we survive. We will move on.
Yes, of course.
But the point is, it's the mindset. It's still a very colonial mindset saying, we can't do. Why can't Sri Lanka? We have the best tea, the best cinnamon, we have the best cashews, we have the best pepper. The list goes on. I mean, I don't have enough fingers to tell you how many, superlative products we have. But the point is, businesses must create value. When you talk about value creation, it means creating value from a natural sense for the environment, creating value in a social sense for people. And only then, if you satisfy those two prerequisites, do you have the right to create profit for yourself. This was my father's philosophy. And that's why he said family business must serve humanity.
True.
So it's a very simple assumption. It's a difficult assumption, but you can never change your policy or abdicate that responsibility just because it's inconvenient or unprofitable.
Exactly.
We focus on that. Last year, we were able to touch the lives of over 650,000 less fortunate people in Sri Lanka through the work of my father's foundation.
Yes.
Now, that to me is greater fulfillment than any profit, any numbers we make. I mean, numbers go into the bank. But the lives that you touch for generations. You help somebody with Down syndrome to set up a business. You help a woman who's in serious, severe difficulty or mental distress to come out of it and start a small enterprise. Now, those are achievements that you can really be happy about.
And Dilhan, as you're saying, I mean, while we are increasing the value aspect, I suppose what I gathered from you is there need to be some kind of a patriotism, vibe to anyone who is in tea, because when you add value, you're adding value to the entire industry, not just to one brand.
My question to many of my colleagues is what has changed since colonialism? We had the British Empire ruling us and telling us you send your tea to the UK. My father fought against it. He had a lot of enemies, as many local as international. But today, in most cases, we do the same thing. That is, we export the potential, the opportunity, and we import the poverty because we sell everything cheap. When you sell everything cheap, you are really abdicating your right and responsibility to the people of Sri Lanka and to our environment. So selling cheap might be easy, but it's a spiral of decline.
Exactly.
Ultimately, we can't compete on price with Vietnam tea, with Indonesian tea, with African tea.
Wow.
But we can compete on quality. We have unprecedented heritage. We have the history of Ceylon Tea. But all of this requires investment. It requires policy and a regulatory environment that will stimulate growth in a sustainable way. So you can't have somebody who is trying to buy as cheap as possible to sell with just looking at their margin. No, you have to be more holistic and say, look, we are Sri Lankans. There's no more the colonial era.
Yes.
The era of multinational corporations is also waning. The opportunity for small startups with quality product is fantastic. And so now is Sri Lanka's time, but we need to seize it.
We need to seize it. We should have seized it yesterday, but let's hope we seize it today.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Dilhan. We've been in conversation with the Chairman and CEO of Dilmah Tea, Dilhan Fernando. Thank you very much, Dilhan, for a very insightful conversation.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.